You are listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report, episode number 216.3. 5 questions that need answers with Will Retherford. This week, Michelle Garmon of the Tipton Tribune and Elwood Call Leader guest stars. Every week, Will answers 5 questions about the national sports scene from a Central Indiana perspective. This week, Will, Michelle, and I talk Pacers, NCAA Tournament, a little NFL, and a little IndyCar, plus all 3 of us make our World Series predictions as the season gets underway in earnest on Thursday. In fact, Will did the podcast on Wednesday night from St. Louis, where he is going to the season opener on Thursday afternoon.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengels.
Will is back to answer 5 questions this week, joined by Michelle Garmon, who is going to play Negative Nelly, the role of Negative Nelly today, like Will did yesterday, and tell him why he's wrong. And I just had a good cry after the Pacers led the Lakers with 0.1 seconds left and found a way to lose by not blocking out one of the best players that's ever played the game.
Yeah.
Well, real quick, Greg, we'll just touch on this before we go to Will, not very long, but my thing is, how can your 7'2" center not have one single offensive rebound against a team that does not have a very good big man?
It's a question we've been asking ourselves for 5 years now. So.
Because today, or at least in the second quarter, first half, parts of the first quarter and then the second quarter, he played from 13 feet on out. He rarely got closer than 13 feet to the rim. Makes you ineffective on offense at 7'2".
What does it say about the Pacers, Will? Where are they? How do you feel about their progress through the season?
They're never going to win anything if Rick Carlisle is their coach. I mean, tonight just absolutely cemented that. The dude's got to get fired. He is the Glock that shoots the Pacers in the foot whenever they need to win a big game constantly. And I'm getting so tired of watching his just inability to make the right coaching decisions. I mean, the fact that you get the offensive rebound you force, you block a shot to get the offensive rebound. You have to put a shot up. You got 12 seconds between the shot clock ending and the end of the game, and you've got your all-NBA point guard, who is the most dynamic playmaker in the league, sitting on the bench because you want to bury a timeout in your pocket that you don't end up calling when the Lakers are on a 3-on-2, coming back on the defensive end. It was ineptitude to not have Tyrese Halliburton in that game. In that moment, I get, they run 5 deep, but you don't sit the best point guard in the league in that
18
moment.
Exactly. 18 assists, 1 turnover.
Got to be on the court.
18 assists, 1 turnover.
You're only up 1. You need a bucket. Why don't you put the guy that put you in the lead? And that is, he just makes boneheaded decisions like that all the time. The fact to walk away from that game with a timeout in your pocket, leaving your best offensive player and one of the best offensive players in the league on the bench when he could have made a difference, that is fireable to me.
But they had the game won until the last second because they didn't block out. I had nothing to do with substitution patterns.
Awesome. Being up 1 in basketball doesn't mean shit if you give up a layup on the other end, because that's 2, and 2 is more than 1, so that's a loss. So why don't you put your best offensive player in there to go get you to 3, go get you to 4? Block out this, that, whatever. It didn't happen. I'm not saying that the execution was right on the players, but that's coaching mismanagement to leave Tyrese Halliburton on the bench.
But Halliburton's as bad defensively as he is good offensively, so you kind of understand that.
You got it. Yeah, but you had the opportunity to, if the Pacers score there, it's going to force Redick to burn a timeout too, to get the ball across half court, and then you can substitute Halliburton back. I mean, you can substitute Nesmith back in for Halliburton in that moment. You just have to put Tyrese Halliburton on the floor to go win you a ball game. They lost that game because he wasn't on the floor.
I'll agree with you, Will. Like I said, the guy had 18 assists and 1 turnover. I mean, and he's on the bench in that situation. Yeah, I mean, Halliburton has to be on the floor. down the stretch in a tight game. If he just has to.
I'd just like to give. I mean, this is essentially Dodgers have they're down a run. Game 7 of the World Series, they got runners on second and third with 2 outs, and Chris Taylor's batting and Shohei Ohtani sitting on the bench to pinch hit. You would never. Dave Roberts' ass would be sent out of Chavez Ravine so quick he'd be swimming in the Pacific Ocean. Okay, and that's what Rick Carlisle should be doing. All right, Pat McAfee got arrested for swimming naked in the Broad Ripple Canal. Throw Rick Carlisle's ass in there fully clothed.
All right, well, let's move on to baseball. Will is in St. Louis to take in some baseball, the Cardinals opening day. Will, who is playing for the World Series championship in October? We've already done your division winners. We've already said who you think's going to be in the playoffs.
I want to be the person that goes against the grain and doesn't say the Dodgers, so I'm going to. I really think that we're staring down a Diamondbacks. I feel like one thing I'd like to mention about the AL before I say a team is I really have a gut instinct that the Marlins are going to trade Sandy Alcantara to the highest bidder in the AL, and I think that will put a team's rotation over the edge to
Yankees
potential. I don't know if the Yankees are going to have the horses to go get him. I know that sounds crazy, but I mean he's got 2 years of team control left. It's going to take a haul to get him. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. A team that I do think maybe has the prospect pool in the American League to do so would be the Orioles. I think that they have a team that could definitely give 3 or 4 position players that would be able to fill a role in Miami's probably starting lineup this year. But I think that is I do think that the team that gets Alcantara, if they're a contender, is going to be that team. But for the sake of the just picking 2, I'm going to say the Rangers. I think that they're going to have a big bounce back year. I think last year was an anomaly. They're going to get back to healthy, and I also
do they have the pitching, or can they go get the pitching?
I think that they can probably go get it if they want to, but I mean but
that lineup,
they need Kumar Rocker to come in and be a rookie of the year type pitcher. They need DeGrom to stay healthy. I think that they have enough. I think it just comes down to, are they going to be able to elevate their roster? They obviously they've got Simeon, they've got Seager, they've got Jonah Heim, who he struggled some last year, but I would expect a bounce back year from him as well. You hope Wyatt Langford takes a step forward. I think that the Rangers are my dark horse, kind of the team that I just feel like has the chance. I would not be surprised to see a rematch. Diamondbacks and Rangers, I think it's a rematch of 2023.
Michelle, before you go, I just want to say that I'm going to say Phillies over Yankees.
Yeah. I don't know. With Garrett Cole missing out the season for the Yankees, I think that's a huge setback. And nowadays, the way arms are, you have problems anyway. I think that's just a huge.
If the regular season meant anything, you'd probably be right.
The regular season meant anything, but
is have a few arms in the postseason, and they have a good enough lineup. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah, I know, but
it's a wide open American League.
Yeah, you missed Mr. Dependable, because I think wasn't Garrett Cole one of those guys that if he pitched after a loss, they won. Kind of the guy you want on the mound after a loss.
But he hasn't been that guy for a couple of years.
He is the best pitcher of this generation. I think when fully healthy, when at full cylinder, he's the best pitcher of this generation.
Yeah, I'm not really sure who in the American League, it will be. Can it be a young team that maybe is good that could surprise? Could it be somebody like the Baltimore Orioles to be a shock? I mean, that wouldn't be surprising.
Wouldn't be surprising to me.
And the National League. It's so hard to look beyond the Dodgers, and I probably you guys might laugh. Greg probably won't laugh, but I probably wouldn't pick beyond the Dodgers if, say, Whitey Herzog or Billy
Billy
Martin
Martin.
before that. If they were those kind of guys, or even say, I would say them, or Bruce Bochy or something. I'm not sure. I think Dave Roberts has done a good job, but I don't know that he always makes the right calls to make them be the dynasty that financially they should be with what they've bought and brought onto their team.
Let's bring this back to Rick Carlisle. To me, he's like Rick Carlisle, a guy who
I agree with
isn't
that.
going to win
Yeah.
you anything. He's also probably not going to lose you anything.
I think Dave, you could make an argument that Dave Roberts is the second or third best manager in his division.
Yeah. Well, or how about I
don't-
forgot one of my favorite managers of all time, a Sparky Anderson.
Mm.
Sparky Anderson would be just the right type of guy for that to win.
Who's the most difference-making manager right now? Who's the most difference-making manager right now, do you think, Will?
I guess if we're going off, I think Mike Schilt, honestly. I think really highly of Mike Schilt. I think his teams are constantly overachieve where they are supposed to. I would think you could make an argument. I mean, obviously Pat Williams, it was his first year, managing the Brewers last year, but he did a phenomenal job with very, I don't want to say little talent, but with an average roster at best, and he was great. I think it comes down to a lot of times I don't always know if it's tough when managers are the great managers stay behind the scenes, like the ones that you're not screaming at the TV every night about a decision. I think of Brian Snitker at the Braves, probably historically I would say is probably the most accomplished at this point, maybe outside of Dave Roberts. But I think Mike Schilt. I just feel like his team's constantly overachieve. I wouldn't be shocked if the Padres were the World Series representative for the National League this year either.
No, I wouldn't. And you know what, Mike
division could win it.
Worst mistake Cardinals made. You get rid of Mike Schilt, and then you bring in who you have. I'll agree, and I still think. He was out and he came back. I still like a guy like Bruce Bochy because I think he's really good in the game, and he's one of those guys that are really kind of quiet that you don't hear necessarily a whole lot about. Turmoil. It's interesting. I think. Part of it too, don't you think, is I think for a manager, I think you've got to have, it's almost got to be a good relationship between manager and general manager.
Mm-hmm.
Because is the general manager willing to work with the manager to construct the roster? Or does the general manager want to pretty much make the decisions and tell the manager, this is what I'm giving you, and go to it?
One thing I would like to add, it's a name that ruffles feathers, but I do think he deserves credit. AJ Hinch at the Tigers. I thought he was a phenomenal manager with the Astros. I know it obviously kind of went down in flames.
Yes, it did.
But he's turned the Tigers into legit playoff contenders. I don't think you can discredit the man as far as a manager. I don't want to get too much into
Yes,
a tangent, but I really I think the loss of Jonathan India will affect the Reds a little more than what people think. He's a clubhouse leader. You lost Joey Votto, who was the clubhouse leader, and then it was Jonathan India coming up. I think Tito is also an absolutely phenomenal manager in his own regard too. I think if the Reds make the playoffs, it's because Tito Francona.
I agree wholeheartedly. I was so excited because he develops players. Don't you think? Well, I think I look at what he did with the Red Sox with Dustin Pedroia, but he took those young guys, I remember as rookies, in that Red Sox team, and he really developed them really well. Obviously they had some talent, but he molded that. And I guess you kind of know how good a manager Tito is when he can manage what he got out of Manny Ramirez.
Yeah.
Who was kind of an odd duck personality wise, and you never really knew. But
the whole team was.
He loved playing for Francona, and I think he respected Terry Francona, and that's what I'm excited. I was excited for the Reds with this young talent they have because I feel like we know they're not going to pony up a lot of big money to keep these guys,
I think David Bell was probably the right manager for the right time, if that makes sense. I think he was probably somebody that could, withstand the fact that they weren't very good and kind of get by. I don't think that he did a poor job. I think he could have done it a lot
Last
better.
year was pretty bad, but
He can't
yeah, up to
coach.
then. And I
He
thought
can't
he and
manage in
Freddie
August and September.
Benavidez were a pretty good team for a couple of years there.
But you
I
know what,
think
though? He
that
couldn't manage in August and September. Anytime that the Reds came in and had a chance to make the playoffs, they blew it. And I don't know. I got to the point that I said I was starting to wonder if he just always had vacation plans and never figured they were young and going to get to the playoffs and thought close was good enough and just
yeah.
blew it.
I think that I believe that but until the Reds get serious in the fact that, hey, we're leading the division come the trade deadline and we're going to pony up to go get somebody, I think they're always going to get stuck in this purgatory where they're probably going to be good, but they're never going to be good enough. And I think that they have to really, I think they've got to pony up. I mean, I think that paying these young guys and I think right now is the time to go extend a player like Ellie De La Cruz and sign him long term, and a Matt McLean and a Spencer Steer and a Christian Encarnacio Strand, Jake Fraley, TJ Friedel. Like these are players that if you're going to pay them, do them now while they're young, and you are able to get them cheaper. Because if not,
Oh, yes.
you're constantly they're gonna play better, and you're gonna lose them. They're gonna walk. So if you feel like you have something in this team, then I feel like you gotta pony up and start extending these guys.
Hey, what do you think, real quick? Because we've got this, they're really looking at their ownership and everything. They're calling they want a salary cap in baseball now. And I'm going to guess because a lot of those smaller market owners know they'll never be able to go after guys like a Soto because they'll never be able to afford it. Or if they afford him, they will have to a bunch of unknown or unproven players around him.
The players don't want a salary cap, and the owners really don't want a salary cap. They keep saying that they do, but they don't.
It's not going to
The
happen.
Pirates and Reds of the world are happy to spend a tenth of what the Yankees and Dodgers spend, and get way more than a tenth of their crowd and TV audience. So I don't think that's going to happen very soon. All right, let's move on to the NCAA tournament. And Will, you are absolutely right. I was absolutely wrong about the way the first two rounds were going to go. You said it was going to be pretty chalky. It turned out to be the chalkiest first two rounds I've ever seen. Has your top five, who you think is going to win it all, has that changed at all?
I mean,
And who are your top five?
I would say that right now, if I'm just going strictly on what I've seen over the course of this past weekend and coming into this week, I don't necessarily know it's changed much. I mean, I had Alabama as my five. I don't know if I love that pick anymore. I think they do have their work cut out for them against BYU. However, you know what? Yeah, I think I'm going to put Michigan State up there for the sole fact that they won a game last week in which their best player scored 6 points, didn't have a bucket until the last 3 minutes of the game. And if you're able to consistently win like that in March with Tom Izzo as your head coach, who constantly gets more out of his team than anybody maybe outside of Matt Painter, I'm going to pick him. I'm never betting against Tom Izzo, so I'm going to put him at five just from the standpoint of he's here. I like his matchup against Arkansas. I think that this Michigan State team, I think they're just gritty. I think they're a gritty ball club, and I think that they have the recipe to make games really nasty. And I think they're comfortable swimming in deep water, and I think you're going to see them pull teams into that water that aren't as comfortable. And it's going to be a sink or swim, and I think there's going to be a lot of sinking. I wouldn't be shocked if Michigan State found their way to the Final Four, found their way to the national championship game. So I'm going to put them at five. Four. I can't recall exactly who my four was last week.
Auburn?
With you know what?
Auburn 4, Alabama 5, I think.
I like Auburn at four still, I think. I don't think that they've played great. I think they've played good enough to get by. But for all intents and purposes, it doesn't really matter what they put together. Last Thursday and last Saturday, all that matters is what's in
They
front of them.
looked the most vulnerable of all the number
I
one
agree.
seeds.
I think of the ones who did look the most vulnerable. I think this is a sneaky little matchup against Michigan, though. I think that Michigan's a team that's rolling real hot since winning the Big Ten championship. I think they've got two really good big men that can definitely disrupt Auburn's athleticism down low. Whether Michigan really has the horses to run up and down with them, I guess that's to be determined, but I would not be shocked. I'm going to put Auburn at 4 just from the standpoint of they're the number one overall seed, but I don't know if I'd be surprised if Michigan beat them this weekend. 3, to me, 3 still got to be Houston. I love their defensive intensity. People don't like Kelvin Sampson. However, I tend to think that he's a pretty good ball coach. I think that he has his team ready to play. I don't love this matchup for Purdue against Houston. I think if Purdue beats Houston, Braden Smith had 35 and 12, and he could cement himself as potentially the player of the year with a huge performance and a big victory over Houston. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Houston's probably going to win, and I don't know if it'll be within 8 points. I don't know what the spread is exactly, but I would take Houston to cover whatever it was. 2, Duke. I still think that John Shire is an impeccable coach. I think Cooper Flagg is playing out of his mind. He's by far probably the best basketball player in this tournament remaining. I don't know if he's the best athlete. He's a freak athlete, but I think he is the best all-around basketball player for all that word encompasses. So I think Arizona's a tough matchup for them, and quite frankly, I don't think that either one of BYU or Alabama is going to pose a threat to them to get to the Final Four. And if we're talking most likely, getting to the Final Four is how you do that. So I'm going to give Duke the benefit of the doubt there. And number one, it's still Florida. I think that they have maybe the easiest remaining. Between they've got to play Maryland, they've got to play Texas Tech and Arkansas. I think that Florida would be just fine with either one of Texas Tech and Arkansas. And I think Maryland is a team, while they're a 4 seed, I think Maryland is a team that has slightly overachieved in this tournament. And I think that Florida's size and strength down low will exploit Maryland's weaknesses.
Not sure that is necessarily in the order, but I think I will actually, and I know it seems weird, but I think I'm actually going to say I think Duke is the team to beat because I think Cooper Flagg is one of the best basketball players I've ever seen at this stage. I think if they still went straight into the pros, he is along the lines of a Kobe Bryant in this guy. He could have went into the NBA this year and been successful. But he's a little different too because he is so team oriented, and I think that's what's really helped Duke. I mean, he gets the notoriety, but he won't do interviews. Doesn't want to do them by himself. He wants his teammates there, and how refreshing is that to see a young, as opposed to Derek Queen who says, "Well, that's the best thing about," or something about Willard, and he goes, "Well, he do pay me." Sorry, you do pay us. I mean, it's like, oh, really, okay. But, I think Michigan State, I like them to make it to the Final Four. This has been a long time for him since the last Final Four. And this team, maybe more than ones in recent, really have taken his personality, but like that grittiness.
I agree. I mean, I think that is spot on.
They love him. They want that toughness, and
it's the most talented team and skilled team he's had in a long time too.
Yeah, but with that toughness, that kind of makes me think of the teams that he had with Mateen Cleaves a little bit. That let's just go hard and listen to coach and do. And so yes, I may like them a little higher than 5 because I do think that I like them to get to the Final Four because now. And like I said, I like Duke. I like Florida. I thought that UConn Florida game was one of the best games to see.
In a tournament with not very many good ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I thought it was just a great game. And I mean, Hurley is a tremendous X and O's coach. If you could just take away the profanity-laced tantrums and tirades.
And they look at me, I'm the best.
Yes. And what
attitude that
irks
he
me about
has.
that is he knows their families and young kids. And that profanity, as you're yelling and doing that with young children, and that's just not, he's not being an adult in that situation. And that's sad. Because he is an outstanding coach when it comes to it. Auburn is the one that I'm not really sure. I mean, I agree that most vulnerable of that. So I'm not sure that Auburn is in my top 5 to win the Natty. But Florida or Duke, Florida, Michigan State. As much as it pains me because I know what Kelvin Sampson did to the IU program, and it was not just the text and everything. It does go deeper than that. The things that went on in his regime at IU and decimated it. But he is a good coach. I thought he did a nice job at Oklahoma before. And to be honest, I really think that time that the 5 years he had to be banned from college basketball, I think it changed him. I mean, if you wanted to say a man in his 40s at the time, 40s or 50s grew up, I think he kind of did. I think his teams are. So I would put Houston as one of those teams. I'll tell you what, I'm going to take the other Big Ten team. I'm going to take Michigan because, Will, you're right. They have 2 really good big men. Now, the key for Michigan is, does Donaldson stay hot? Because he has been tremendous at the guard spot. And, you have to,
We're about
if you
3
have
weeks
bigs,
now.
you have to have a great guard that can make a difference. And Donaldson is making a difference. I mean, I just like his ability to drive and get to the rim. I like to pull up and hit jump shots. He's just playing at an elite level right now. And if he continues that, Michigan could do some. Michigan could find their way possibly to the Final Four.
I'd like to piggyback a little bit on what you said about the guard play as a way to maybe cement my decision at Florida at 1. And that's Will Clayton Jr., one of the most in-rhythm basketball players I've seen in a long time. Every shot is in rhythm. Every pass is in rhythm. Every transition is in rhythm. I know that word is kind of a buzzword in the basketball, rhythm this, rhythm that. He has it. He's just got that. He's always in control. I mean, those shots he put up against UConn, I mean, you're standing there and my dad's watching the game with me and he does the fader off the screen and Dad looks at me and says, "What the hell is he doing?" And I said, "Dad, he was in rhythm. He went up in rhythm and he splashes it." And I just think that matters so much to have that go-to guard that can go get buckets. And I think he's the best guard left. Braden Smith's there. Braden Smith doesn't have the horses to be the best guard left just because Purdue is weak.
Braden Smith's biggest problem is he plays 40 minutes every night.
Yeah, I agree.
He's done that now for about 3 years. I mean, at least the last 2. Pardon?
Hasn't seemed to bother him.
No, it does. If you look at he's not shooting well. Look at his numbers, and if you go back to last year, he's never been a high percentage
shooter. That's not.
Yeah, but even some threes, he's not, and I think he's gotten beat a few times defensively. It's gone. We'll find out. We'll find out against Houston. But
I like their chances because Painter will have 6 days to prepare. But to me, it looks like Houston and Florida, as good as Cooper Flagg and Braden Smith are, it looks to me like Houston and Florida are a half level above everybody else. And Florida, they just and you talk about the guard play. He's got such great athletes around him too.
Oh, he does.
He does. He's just so. If I was coaching basketball at any level right now, from youth to high school, I would put on his tape and say, "Watch how he moves the ball. Watch the way that he sees and analyzes the court before making a decision. He never frets. He honestly, he reminds me a lot of a Tyrese Halliburton, to be completely honest with you, with his just ability to make plays when plays need to be made, and his ability. He's a great shooter he's a great shooter. I just think he's a real X factor for that team.
Okay, well, I'm going to go one, but I'm going to go one. I'm going to tell you who I think during the thing, who Cooper Flagg makes me think of. A more athletic Larry Bird. I think he's like a point forward. I think he makes wonderful decisions. He's not afraid of the big moments. He loves getting his teammates involved. He can do things. That's why I like him. And here's the other thing I like. I think why Duke is because the ACC wasn't a gauntlet this year. I mean, they didn't have to spend a lot of it. I mean, yeah,
That's
they
why
had
I think
to
they're
hold off
overrated.
North Carolina, but I think if you have a gauntlet of a season, it can fatigue you out. I don't think Duke is fatigued because the ACC overall was not really that good. But I think because the team won without Flagg in the ACC tournament, I think it gives them a load of confidence, through it. And I think Shire's managed that group very well. And for as good as Duke is, and with Flagg, really, they're still kind of under the radar. They're still not talked about as much because the SEC with the super conferences now and with Florida and everything. And I think that plays to Duke's benefit to kind of be under the radar a little bit.
I like what you're saying. If Cooper Flagg was 20 years old, I'd feel a little different. He's 18. He's quite frankly, I mean, he plays like a man, but he's still a boy out there, to be completely honest. And I just think that when the lights get real bright and it gets really real, really fast, I just think he's young, and I just don't know how he plays out.
Hasn't happened with freshmen very often in the NCAA tournament, just to be the best player and take your team to the national championship.
I just feel like
it's so rare.
The get me
Carmelo
is
Anthony?
rare.
Yeah, but I'm not even sure he was the best player that year on their team. Akeem Warwick was probably their better player.
Michelle, I'm not saying that you couldn't be completely right.
No, I know.
He could prove me, and I'm not saying that. I'm just a caveat to the argument of that. He's the best
I like
player,
Clayton.
but he's just young. He's so young. I mean, he's literally.
Michael Jordan was 19 when he hit the game winner for North Carolina.
He was
in the
not their
national
best
championship.
player either.
I mean,
James Worthy was their best player. The one that you could make an argument was Anthony Davis. Was the best player on a national championship team as a freshman. Doesn't happen.
Purvis Ellison. Purvis Ellison was for Louisville.
The best player. He was the best player in the national championship game. He was.
He's the best player in the tournament. That was it. He got hot at the right time.
But he was not their best player through the season.
Cooper Flagg should be getting his girlfriend a Cassage right now. That's what he should be doing. But he's playing in the NCAA tournament as a 1 seed.
Right.
So,
all right, let's move on to the NFL. Anything that happened in the last 2 weeks change your top five? Will Joey Bosa, we talked about a little bit. Anything? Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, inevitably being in Pittsburgh. Any of those things change anything in your mind about the NFL in the upcoming season?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that there's any move to me right now that I'll say one thing. I will say one thing. I think the Vikings are going to be a little disappointed that they let J.J. McCarthy go this year. I think that's a roster and a team that's built to win right now at this given moment. And I think expecting a rookie quarterback to take him to the Super Bowl I think it's questionable, but that's just my opinion. I think that the Vikings team I think they're built to win right now. And I think expecting J.J. McCarthy to come in and keep everyone happy on that offense and be the leader that he can be at the age of 21 is really expecting an awful lot of him. And I hope that I think KOC can scheme me open on an offensive play call. I mean, he's that good. He's truly an offensive wizard. However, I just think it's a lot of pressure to put on his shoulders, and I think that in a division that is going to be very good with a lot of really tough, physical, competitive division games that will ultimately determine playoff seeding, I just think it's a big gamble to take, in my opinion.
You just don't like the Steelers. You don't think Aaron Rodgers moves the needle.
No, I don't think as long as Mike Tomlin's coaching the Steelers, I don't think they're winning any. So I think he is as overrated as a coach as they come. I think that he constantly underachieves regardless of what other people say. And I think if Rodgers goes there, they might not even make the playoffs. So maybe finally they will have a season below 500.
Yeah, but you know what? I think am I not right? Haven't they, I mean, they brought in another receiver. I think they realize that if they want to get there, they've got to throw the football. And the run has got to complement the passing game. It's not the passing game complement the running game. Or it's got to be more of a 50-50 split. And I'm not saying that Aaron Rodgers is the guy, but I will say, Tomlin, you can't – to think how many years he's been there and he's never had a losing season. He's been 500 a couple times, but never a losing season. That's tough to do today in the NFL and in that division. That's pretty tough to do. And so I have high regards for him with that.
Without a good quarterback the last –
Are we talking about the division that's had the Cleveland Browns in it for the entirety?
And the Ravens.
No, the Cleveland Browns
and the Bengals.
And the Bengals, who were pretty atrocious outside of, like 3 years with Andy Dalton. I don't think that division's been that good. I think that the Ravens have been good, but I don't think that.
You are irrational when it comes to Mike Tomlin, and I don't understand it.
Because I don't understand. I don't understand. He's the only coach in the world that people are content saying mediocrity is good. He's mediocre. That team
hasn't been mediocre. He went to the playoffs every single year with Ben Roethlisberger.
Absolutely nothing to show for it. They have 2 Super Bowls early in his career.
There you go.
And they've done nothing since. They've done absolutely nothing since.
Who else has won a bunch of Super Bowls other than Bill Belichick? We all know Bill treated a little bit to get those. But hey. I mean, it's
one.
Those are the only 2 guys who have won.
Gets crapped on. He won one. Sean Payton won one. Sean McVay won one.
Yep.
Bruce Arians. I mean, all these coaches that we don't even never have the conversation.
What's the common denominator with all those guys? They had a quarterback that could get you a championship.
And
he has not had
Tomlin
Roethlisberger.
And that's on Tomlin. That is on Tomlin.
Is he the general manager?
I think Tomlin has a lot to say in what goes on in that building, and I think they have constantly been okay with having bad quarterbacks. 7 was really good. They didn't take advantage of what 7 was. I mean, his rookie year, he wasn't the reason they won that Super Bowl. Their defense was incredible. I mean, he played a huge role in their second Super Bowl.
Here's what I think, though, with the Steelers, and I think this is why they like Tomlin, and I think this is what he's realized, and maybe he's finally getting. I know it's funny to say he's been through all this, and he's finally getting some leeway. And I think he's tried at different times. He's just brought in maybe the wrong guys to run the offense. But there's a Steeler way. Chuck Noll. Oh, who's the guy on the CB? Oh, gosh, my mind's not very good tonight.
Bill Cowher.
Yes, Cowher, yes. Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin. There was a Steeler way. The Rooneys, that they had a way at what they kind of liked, a blueprint. And I think they liked it. And it had brought them success along the way. And Tomlin has followed that. And like it or not, you say it's his fault for a quarterback. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. Rooney's may not want to pay a quarterback. They may not want to pay outrageous kind of things because, I mean, they play. It's not an attractive city to go in and want to be out.
Aaron Rodgers move the needle for you?
I don't really know how much good years Aaron has. The only thing the bad thing about Aaron, whereas this is why I know a lot of people say, well, greatest quarterback of all time, maybe one of the greatest throwers of all time, but he does not work with young guys. I mean, he's not going to, I get he's contemplating, but he needs to make a decision. And then he needs to if he doesn't want to go, he's got enough money. He needs to fly those receivers out to spend a month with him and work with those receivers. He's got to build it with them.
He's not going to do that.
I know. And that's why he doesn't really move the needle. And it's kind of sad when you think about it. When you look out there you talk about there are a lot of great quarterbacks, but yet at the same time, there's not always necessarily. I mean, it's hard to find one that is with longevity is going to be good over, continue to be good.
I would say, I mean, I've been a Cardinals fan my entire life. The Cardinals have had a way for a really long time. The Cardinal way is, long talked about in the MLB circles as being just a great organization top to bottom. And the Steelers have a way too. And the Cardinals way has fostered mediocrity since 2011. The same way the Steelers the way has fostered mediocrity since 2011 as well. Eventually the leagues have changed. It's modern. It's different now. And if it's adapt or die. The Cardinals have died, and they have to adapt to this new system the same way the Steelers have to. The Steelers have to quit acting like it's 1990 anymore.
I won't argue. I won't argue with that.
They can't have the most expensive defense in the league and think that they're ever going to be worth anything. They wasted Le'Veon Bell, Martavis Bryant, Antonio Brown, older Heath Miller, young Pat Freiermuth. They wasted the talent they had, and it's because it's an archaic system that just doesn't work anymore. And unfortunately, Tomlin is the guard of that system, and until he's gone,
until the people above him say, open it up. I mean, that's just the whole thing. I mean, like I said, I think that a lot of it is based. I'm not so sure it's all based on Tomlin, because if you look, it's just been a prototype from down through the years. It makes you wonder how much is Tomlin and how much is the Rooney family.
Same thing since 1969. You're absolutely right. Defense first. We'll think about the offense later.
Want to have a powerful running game?
And they don't have a powerful running. They've
had for years.
They've had an awful run game, and I don't expect it to get any better this next year either. So I mean, you can bring in DK Metcalf, you can bring in George Pickens. We might see a fist fight on an overthrown ball between those two of who was supposed to catch it. I mean, we're talking about two of the moodiest players ever that we suddenly think are going to gel together. I mean, it's dumbfounding me. They're not going to. They're two alphas, and two alphas, they don't like to play with each other. And and especially if you bring in Aaron Rodgers, who's an alpha also, I don't see that working.
He's going to love those guys. He's going to love that he has two alphas.
He's gonna love them until they're up his ear because they're not getting the ball enough.
Hey, before we go to IndyCar, we talked about players moving the needles. What do you think about Justin Fry now being the offensive line coach for the Arizona Cardinals?
I think it's a great get for him. To be quite honest, I think he is widely regarded in offensive line circles as one of the best teachers of offensive line skill in the entire country, regardless of NFL or college level, and I expect that to translate out to the desert. I think that the Cardinals are a team that you need to be on the watch for to possibly win a division next year because of that move.
Agreed.
I think if they protect Kyler Murray and he's able to extend plays and get Marvin Harrison Jr. the ball, I think that's a team that could be really dangerous.
I like it. I'm happy for Justin. I think it is a good move for him. And I think, he was starting to, I don't know if you guys paid attention to it, but even though they won the Natty, he was still under a little bit of heat for lack of being able to recruit. And then the great thing about the NFL is you don't have to worry about that.
No.
He just gets to go do what he does, and that is coach and teach.
I'm really happy for him. As far as I think this is right up his alley. He's going to get to reunite Paris Johnson. Was his offensive tackle at Ohio State. He's going to get to reunite with him. I think it's going to be really good as long as Kyler Murray cannot be a check down merchant. If Kyler Murray can push the ball down the field, for the sake of my fantasy team for one, because I can't, I'll pull my hair out. You see how long it is. I'll pull my hair out if I have.
Well, I hate to tell you this, Will, but I don't think he's one of the top 15 quarterbacks in the NFL.
No, he's not. But just give the ball to Marv, let him do his thing, and we'll all be all right.
He is definitely in the top 15 most effective quarterbacks in the NFL.
No, he's not one of the top 15. I wouldn't take him.
No doubt about it.
I wouldn't take him.
Not even a question. He's 10 on top 10 on
No.
That 10's high. 10. I'll give you top 15, but 10's real high.
But no, maybe 15. I might grant you he might be number 15.
He's such a great athlete, and he's got a really good arm.
Being a great athlete doesn't make you a great quarterback.
Good downfield vision, and he's not a perfect quarterback by any means, but
I just
he's
don't think he
definitely
really.
a franchise quarterback.
Now, hopefully, the thing is he. I don't think he wants to study. I don't think he really wants to. I don't know how well
He was
he
awfully good
can
last year.
study and read defenses and decipher that stuff. And I
He was
think
awfully good
that's
last year.
so.
I think he's really good. He's good at taking what the defense gives him as far as
Improvisation,
checkdowns
yeah. He's
to
very good at
Connor and
improvising.
McBride. I don't think he's great at standing in the pocket and making tough throws. I don't think he's great at that. I think he's a really good scrambler, and I think he's good at getting the ball out quickly. Outside of that, I think he is really hamstrung to his inability to stand in the pocket and deliver a ball. And I think a lot of that has to do with his stature. I mean, he's real stocky. I'm not saying that, but it's a lot different standing in the pocket taking shots when you're 6'6" versus 5'9". That's a huge difference. And I
Well,
don't think
maybe he should go study some more film of guys like Doug Flutie and Drew Brees. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to have a 2-part IndyCar question for you as we exit. Number 1 is going to be about Alex Palou, obviously, 2 for 2, incredible performance again Sunday. But part 2 is going to be about the schedule and Fox, who really blew it on Sunday. Question number 1, is this Alex Palou's year? Will you expect him to be the champion going away? Maybe Indy 500 favorite, or is it too early to tell still?
best driver on the circuit, and it's not even close. It's like Lightning McQueen. It's like watching Cars for the first time. I was 3 years old. It's like watching it all over again. Alex Palou is the best driver in the world. I'll go as far to say that he's the best driver in the world. I will say the only racer that has any chance is Award. Pato is the only guy that has any chance of catching him, and I think he's fighting for
Newgarden
place
with Penske.
No,
No?
I think Newgarden. He's already 49 points down.
Well, they're all more than 30 points down. So
yeah, they're all almost 40 points down. That's how
That's
good
right.
Palou's been, and I would expect that he's going to continue that dominance. He's just so well rounded. He's incredible on the ovals. He's an incredible short circuit driver, long circuit driver, road course driver. Whatever you put at him, he is the best driver in the field.
But the series needs more ovals, right, guys? I mean,
Yes.
the schedule needs to change some, and that
I think
race
so.
at Thermal's got to go.
Yeah, I
It's
think
visually
that,
horrible.
I don't know if it needs more ovals as much as it needs better road courses, more exciting road courses, more fan engagement in the road courses. I think that they have a tendency to kind of set up tracks and run tracks that you don't have very good viewpoints of for most of the race. I mean, we're really fortunate at Indy when they do the Grand Prix with just how tall the grandstands are and honestly just how huge the track is that you're able to get good viewpoints from everywhere the way they design the track. But that's not every race. I mean, the ovals are incredible. They make for showing the talent as far as the hidden maneuvers inside of a race that people don't typically see on a road course. My issue with the road courses is that sometimes the pole position can literally just win the race because he's just that far out ahead. There's a massive crash at turn 1. It knocks 8 drivers out, and then nobody recovers from that.
I agree. I agree with Greg. I like more ovals. I kind of like the thoughts of even maybe running on some of more of those shorter oval tracks just to
Phoenix.
make it more exciting for this.
Mhm.
I mean, I wouldn't mind that. I mean, I wouldn't mind if, NASCAR used to run Pocono twice. I wouldn't mind if IndyCar, or does IndyCar run at Pocono a couple times? The
They're
tri-oval?
running there at any right now.
Yeah,
They
they
don't
should.
run
They
Pocono.
should go. They should go to the tri-oval at Pocono. I mean,
The problem
would-
with Pocono, the problem with Pocono is the embankment's so steep. It's really a stock car design track that really makes it tough to run.
And
We're
Michigan.
talking about. IndyCar we're talking about like 13 degrees on the banks and then 9 degrees on the straightaways. I mean, you're talking about a pretty flat track for the most part. I mean, you start getting into these super speedways as far in NASCAR that they run. I mean, you're talking about 21, 23 degree embankments at some of these. It's completely different track
Well,
design.
Michigan was made for Indy cars.
No, it was, and I think that they need to run at Phoenix a couple times just because I think they need to run at Iowa more too. I mean, that's a really good short track.
Yeah, but
I mean,
what they really need is events in the spring or winter, so you don't have 3 weeks between races, and that's why Phoenix just makes so much sense.
Oh, it does.
Why in Homestead? In
That's what I was
that's
getting
not a
ready to
high
say.
bank,
Homestead would be another
not a
one.
high bank. The problem is NASCAR runs there in March, so it's be hard to get an IndyCar race there.
well, and the thing with Homestead is it's such a desirable location. I wouldn't mind seeing Homestead come earlier in the season just because, well, I wouldn't mind them running there at all earlier in the season just because the weather's super nice. It's really an attractive place to be in late February, early March, coming down from St. Pete. Hey, let's go down to Homestead and race. I just think that if the scheduling kind of aligned that way a little better, and I know this is internet fodder. NTT doesn't really care what we think as far as their scheduling and where they have the races. I just think it would make for
They
a
care
more
what the
effective year.
fans think.
You know what? And one race that I really wish that they would go. I love Belle Isle when they run at Belle Isle in Detroit, and I know that it's not a great viewing as far as a fan, but the TV is absolutely incredible. It is excellent. It's gorgeous. It is a really exciting circuit, and I really wish that they would go back there.
The last question is about Fox. Will, you and I talked about this coming in. They had
Hmm.
such a good package
Oh
with
yeah.
NBC. You could get every practice, different TV shows, behind the scenes stuff on the Peacock app. I can't find the IndyCar race on any Fox apps. I'm having an impossible time finding it, first of all. And now it was on TV. The product is good on TV, I think, especially with the drones over top is really cool views. The in cars, the Townsend Bell and James Hinchcliffe, you cannot do better than those two, as far as I'm concerned. But to lose the race for 45 minutes during the race is unforgivable almost.
No, it is. I think that it's one of those where you really hope these teams get worked out early because, like, Hinchcliffe and Townsend Bell are maybe the most elite analysts of any major sports coverage in the United States. I would argue, as far as their analysis in race and the insight they're able to give to the fan. I mean, they're
And they're
so
so
good.
entertaining too.
God, they're so entertaining and they inform you. I feel like that I could be an engineer when I listen to them call a race. It's an incredible listen. I think I want Fox to do better by IndyCar. IndyCar deserves better. It is an incredible product. It is the most exciting racing product in the world, and I really want Fox to do right by this series and circuit. Fox has to get better direct to consumer. They've got to quit going. It has to be accessible on your phone. A lot of times these races are happening in the afternoon on a Sunday, afternoon on a Saturday. People aren't home watching, linear television like that anymore. They're out about doing. You need to get good radio broadcast because IndyCar is a sport that can be really successful radio wise. In fact, a majority of consumers, especially for the 500, are radio consumers. I mean, there's a reason that those radio analysts are taken care of so well for the 500s because it's a huge deal to listen to that coverage. I just want to see. I thought the advertising by Fox was phenomenal around the Super Bowl time. They were getting, primetime ads on Fox for these NFC Championship games. The Super Bowl, in fact, where they had a commercial in the Super Bowl. And where's the advertising? Where's it gone? Ever since St. Pete, it's like it's just vanished from the face of the earth, and I don't know why. Because you've got you've got somebody to love, you've got somebody to hate. Everybody likes a dynasty, whether we want to admit it or not. And right now, IndyCar's got a dominant driver, and that's fun to root for. There's a reason that the Lakers are a massive fan base. There's a reason that the Dodgers are a massive fan base. There's a reason that the Chiefs fan base has grown so exponentially since they've started their success. People like that, and so people need to know what's going on. People need to be aware of what's happening in IndyCar from the standpoint of NASCAR sucks right now. It just can be so much better, and I'm disappointed. I was really excited for this move to Fox, and so far they've kind of shit the bed, for lack of better words. They've just not done the job and held up their end of the bargain.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it as always. Appreciate you guys making time and doing it really late and doing it on an app rather than live, as Will and I usually do, and Michelle and I usually do. But I'm on spring break. Will's in St. Louis, and Michelle is dog sitting. So
In Lafayette.
thanks so much to Will and Michelle for joining me remotely for this week's 5 questions that need answers with Will Rutherford. Awfully nice of them to make time every week. And thank you, of course, for listening. If you are interested in seeing the Central Indiana Sports Report continue to grow and thrive, please share these episodes with your friends. And don't forget that the daily report airs every day at 1 p.m., or maybe a little after if I oversleep. The Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susie. And Boiler Up.